Welcome to the podcast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Mark.
So what do we have on tap this week?
Learning how to deer hunt?
Kind of a beginner's approach to deer hunting. Where to find info, how to find it. Because we live in a world of information overload.
We do, and there's certainly a lot of stuff out there on social media, YouTube and stuff, which I love to tap into. There's no shortage of information.
But
some of it's probably really good, and some of it maybe not so good. But
it can be hard the lines can get blurred between what's truth and what's not true, or what's being honestly represented and what may be a little bit. Because anybody can sit down and put a video out.
I'm living proof of that.
Yeah. We're here. We've said from the get-go, not an expert.
No, I'm certainly not an expert, just a guy that likes to do it.
Yeah.
So.
I'm an expert in one area, and this is not the time or place for that.
I'm still looking for my field of expertise.
If I brought that information to YouTube, I'd probably be kicked off in about a week.
Yeah.
I definitely would not fit that narrative that they want.
Into their bubble or whatever. Yeah.
No, they'd have
into their box.
Target on my back.
Yeah.
Real quick. But so anyone can sit down and throw information out. How do you find what's accurate, what's true?
Yeah.
You can feel kind of sometimes like you're left out.
Unfortunately,
Paul,
experience teaches you what the real stuff is, but when you're beginning, you don't have that experience to disseminate what's real and what's not real. But like I say, after you've done it for years and stuff, when you hear somebody talk about doing things a certain way, you understand. I've seen it done that way or done it that way, and it works or whatever. That's for real.
Yeah.
So,
obviously getting out and doing it is you basically but there's fundamentals.
Yeah.
That can be learned. But then from that point on, you just gotta, there's so many nuances, and we'll kind of get into, we all have different characteristics. We all have different strong points. And it's, you kind of got to find those areas that you're good at, kind of your strong points, and then build off of those. If you're trying to copy somebody else and how they do it. Because I would say probably the way I deer hunt is a little different than yours.
Yeah.
And there's differences in ages. There's differences in physical characteristics.
Yeah.
I'm built extremely weird. I have really long legs and a wicked short torso. But one of my biggest goals with this channel was to not necessarily, show people how to do things.
Right. It's not a how-to channel or anything like that. Yeah.
I'm by no means an expert.
Yeah.
And, who am I to be, pointing my finger at someone, telling them this is how you need to do it, or this is how it's done.
Right.
Because there's so many nuances.
Yeah.
With deer hunting, especially in northern Maine, especially if you want to deer track and do stuff like that. But my goal is to create meaningful discussion.
Yeah. And
generate thoughts in your head or in a viewer's head on, is there a better way that they could be doing this? Are there different ways? Does it make sense? And I think that's really how learning occurs the best, is when there's a partnership between two people, not an authoritative, someone wagging their finger at you, telling you this is how, like a parent, but there has to be some sort of buy-in between the two people, and then discussion, and then you start asking difficult questions, and then you create an environment where that person starts reflecting on what their past successes were, maybe where they dropped the ball, maybe their strengths, what about them, their characteristics would make them really good. And then building off of that, because you get a lot of, and it's kind of the old school way of teaching would be, You sit someone down, tell them this is how it's done. And then you kind of have that teacher-student mentality. And it's more of a two-way street, a relationship.
Yeah.
Is really the best way to learn, because we all learn differently. And
well, and most of it, Paul, and it's been that way for generations, maybe as long as man has been on the earth. The son went out with the father, and that's how the learning process started.
Yeah.
And like you say, you ask lots of questions when you're a kid and stuff, and I still can see myself at 7 and 8 years old and asking questions. And the thing about a lot of people, myself included, their parents did it, but they weren't really passionate, or they didn't do it, But they can start the fire, but you've got to go beyond your parents to really learn how to do it well.
Yeah.
So,
like we were just talking a few minutes ago, there's a lot of quote unquote experts in the deer tracking realm of things.
Yeah, some of them are really good. I listen to to some and there again, like you said, some of the really good ones will tell you have to find your own way in the sport.
I think that gets kind of missed a lot.
Yeah,
that should be probably one of the biggest emphasis, at least for me, is like probably how a lot of if someone went with me, it'd be like, man, I'm pretty aggressive. I go pretty fast, but it has to do with one. I'm pretty well conditioned. I have long legs, and that may not work for somebody else.
And there's certain things, not everybody can shoot like a Lanny Benoit either, Paul.
No.
And they'll never be able to shoot like that. And that's a big advantage when you're tracking deer and stuff, because opportunities can be few and difficult.
Yeah.
And so being able to capitalize on those, just a slight opportunity that 99% of the hunters wouldn't be able to connect on,
I think that was probably Lanny's strongest point. Because if you read his books and watch his videos and stuff, he basically would say this: I just walk up and shoot him.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what he did. But he was obviously such a good shot. He didn't need much of. Yeah. He just needed the least little opportunity, and he could capitalize on it. Now,
can you imagine? You spend 8 hours tracking a deer, and you finally get that one small window, and after 3 or 4 times you're not connecting, which a lot of hunters won't.
Yeah.
That can be very discouraging.
It is.
But he's coming home with a deer those 3 or 4 times, and that's such a fine line, like I say, between what made him successful that day and
him going home empty-handed.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think so. You talk about experiences, and that kind of shapes where you're at that current point in time, your past experiences. And one thing that I can understand with like Lanny Benoit is I like to seize on the element of surprise, because a deer, if he doesn't smell you, it takes him a minute or two. They'll hang around.
Oh, absolutely.
And look, if you give them too much time to figure out what's going on, or they're not comfortable with it. But if you're kind of on them real quick, you can see them because they let you see them.
Yeah.
And there's an element of surprise. And I've always found too, if I shoot a deer, even if I don't hit the thing, if you're on it, like you got like, I don't know, a 15, 20 second window where there's so much confusion, they can't figure out. I mean, they've got a small brain compared to us as far as their ability to work through the situation.
To reason,
And they really can't.
Right.
They're very elemental in their thinking.
Yeah.
And that's an opportunity that you can seize that chaos.
Yeah.
They have no idea what's going on. They're trying to sort it out.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't hit them. And sometimes you can get another opportunity right there because the deer has no idea what's going on. So I can see where, Laney Benoit, he gives that. If you're in those circumstances and you're going too slow, at that point in time, you've given that deer too much time to think about it, and then they're gone.
Yeah, they've got it figured, and you see that, Paul, when you catch a deer. Oftentimes in the road, they always stop and assess.
Well, deer in headlights.
There's a period of assessment with deer.
Yep.
And if you're going fast, sometimes you can catch them in that period of assessment. Going slow, you've given them too much time to think about. Okay, I've assessed the situation and I'm getting out of here.
Yep.
And I've done that with deer. Actually going way too fast and caught the deer standing there looking at me, trying. I've done that a number of times. And then you get into that. Sometimes you jump a deer and he'll go, but if he doesn't know what you are, he'll stop to assess.
Yeah.
Maybe 100 yards, 200 yards.
Oh, they'll wait around.
And that second opportunity is a really good opportunity if he hasn't determined what you are. But after that,
boys, it can be a game changer. Yeah.
Then it's tough. After they've determined that you're a threat and they don't want you around, then it's really tough to, most of the time. You get the outlier that you can catch up to a number of times, but oftentimes after that second encounter, it gets really, really tough. Yeah. It can be discouraging. You can spend the day behind the deer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what that's like.
Yeah. And because sometimes you just don't catch them in the right spot.
Yeah.
There's more spots, actually, when you think about it, there's more spots in the woods that it would be a bad time to catch the deer than is good, depending on where you're hunting. But I find myself in a lot of areas hunting like, man, I hope I don't catch them in here because
you're not going to have a chance.
I'd have to have the barrel right on them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, for me, it's like those points in time, it's like, just get through it.
Yeah.
Just get through it.
There's just some things you can't do much about. So.
No, you can circle those areas and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've done that.
Kind of skirt the dense stuff. But when it comes to learning a lot of that stuff, it's just, there's so many nuances to it. And you see a lot of information out there, whether it's accurate or not, it's not always applicable to everybody. People have different levels of their eyesight, their ability to see, their ability to hear.
That is for sure. That's a big thing. I mean, there again, the small opportunities you're going to get in the day of deer tracking, if you have the ability to pick him out, from a distance with seeing very little, that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And
and we've talked about it before. You don't have to have like 20/10 vision or 27 vision. A lot of it's a learned,
knowing what to look for,
knowing when something's out of place.
Yeah, and it comes natural after a while.
You just got to do it.
After a while, you're going through the woods, and anything that's horizontal, your eye just goes to it.
Yeah, it's like that doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a stump.
Like they've always said, you've always read and heard, most things in the forest are vertical.
Yeah.
And anything horizontal will catch your eye. And like I say, that just comes after being out there. You don't even think about it. You catch it out of this corner of your eye, and you're just, you catch things that are out of place.
Just
vertical,
automatic.
That look out of place. So
there's a lot of good information out there, but man, there's a lot of, it can be hard to tease through the mountains of info that's thrown at you. Even when you go from gear to, what you need for gear, everyone's telling you, you need this, you need that. You can spend so much money unnecessarily.
Well, a lot of that, Paul, they have sponsors.
Yeah.
And so they're going to push their gear, and, that's because people are selling stuff.
Yeah. Lacey's brought it to my attention. There's been a few families that are newer to the area. You know, they've asked her, like, you know, how do they get into hunting, to deer hunting? How do they start? And I think we talked about it before. Is, you know, it's great to, you know, start on the internet and kind of pouring through stuff, but also being able to kind of have some restraint in just buying into whatever you're being told at that point in time. Really get out with someone who has some experience.
Well, that's a big thing.
Spend some time
we've talked
with them.
about that before, Paul. You know, if you can connect with somebody that
Yeah.
has experience in anything, I don't care if you were archery or whatever, that'll help you out a lot for sure.
Even if you're from away and wanting to hunt here, how valuable it would be to hire a guide your first time.
Yeah.
Or something like that. A little bit of an expense up front, but man, it could really shorten the learning curve.
Yeah.
Spending a few days behind someone who does it for a living.
Yeah.
And they could really, because I mean, just finding deer up here is
finding deer up here is tough for sure.
Is an art in itself.
Yeah.
It's very dynamic. What was there last week may not be there this week.
Yeah.
And you can get caught into, I mean, we all have favorite places and we all have places that we've had success in the past, but you can't kind of get sucked into, like, that's my place to hunt.
That's a big thing too, Paul. And I kind of fall into that, you know, we kind of fall back to the same places we've had success in years past or seen deer. And you know, it's a big world out there.
It is.
There's a lot of country, and there could be a lot of places that, you know, have a lot better potential than the place you're standing in, you know, that you stood in for 5 or 10 years or whatever.
But I think a lot of times, if we're not seeing anything going on, we're out of there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that happened last year.
Yeah.
Opening day, we were into a spot that there was a lot of sign.
Yeah.
A few days later, there was nothing going on.
We really fell into it there on that Wednesday there when we went into that area, and there's deer tracks everywhere, and you shot the deer.
There's just a pocket of deer there.
Yeah. Yeah. And dead end road. We
Yeah.
went right down to the end of a dead end road, and that was
So people will ask me, where do you hunt? I'm like, well, pretty much like all of Aroostook County.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always looking.
Yeah.
We were up fishing.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were a long ways away. And finding deer sign there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's potential there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, like, so shot a nice buck last year. Like, I'll probably go in and snoop around, but there's one less big buck there.
Yeah.
You know? So why it's gone?
Yeah. And that area had just been logged. So that may be totally different this year.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, they had left the tops of the trees, which held a lot of old man's beard, which the deer love. So they were in there.
Yeah.
Well, that may be all gone now. You know, that situation could have changed 100% from last year.
But even when you take a big buck out of an area, you know, at some point, an area can get played out.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, you don't get a lot of pockets of areas with 200 plus pound. They're not just around every corner.
Oh my goodness. No, it would, up here in northern Maine, it would be, I'd like to know how many square miles it takes to have one that are, you know, there's not a lot of deer. I mean,
no,
I think, I don't know what they're saying now, maybe 2 deer per square mile. So how many square miles would it take to get one over 200 pounds? It would probably be quite a few. There's a lot of country without it.
Well, think about how many square miles have no deer.
Yeah.
Right. That's
yeah. And
I guess that'd be an
there
average.
are a lot of square miles without any deer in it up here. But I will say this, Paul. I look at it like, of course, for me, it's entertainment to watch the deer hunting videos in the Northeast that a lot of the people put out. But there is a lot of good information there. I mean, watching these videos, seeing how there's a lot of really. We didn't have that when I was a kid. You had your sports afield, your outdoor life, and usually those articles would be somewhere else in the world or the country. About deer hunting, and my goodness, there is so much out there now that
there is.
If nothing, it's entertaining.
Yeah. And I mean, I enjoy watching it.
I watch a lot.
I enjoy watching people hunt.
Yeah, I do
and
too.
I think. Well, I mean, I don't think I know. You learn so much just by watching someone going through the actions.
Yep.
And I guess that'd be the second best thing to actually being there with the person is, watching that hunt.
Yeah.
And how it unfolds, maybe what to do, what not to do.
Right. And they're usually pretty good about saying, well, this is that, I did this and it didn't work out. And there's one that he always, he talks about. People ask him, what would you do in this situation or whatever? And he always says, well, I don't know. I'd have to be there. And you assess a lot of different things to come up with a plan of.
It's so hard to explain that to someone without being there.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you're tracking a deer, you're thinking about, like, where's he headed? Am I pushing him into a spot that
the roads,
I could lose him?
Yeah.
Are we going to cross a river?
Yeah.
Or do I have nothing to worry about? I can go.
Yeah.
And
situations. Well, I've done this before in this area, and this is what they've done or where they've gone, and
how the weather's changing.
Yeah.
Throughout the course of the day.
Yeah.
There's so many.
How far you're behind it when you there's a lot. What time you're starting to go on it, and
so many variables.
There's a lot you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get on a big deer track where we hunt, and so, if you didn't know, but if it's on a migration trail, you could end up 10 miles down the road for crying out loud.
I think I remember a time we were driving into a spot to go deer hunting, and we were coming down the road, and there was a nice buck in the road before legal time.
Yeah.
And I think when we sat in the truck wasn't very long.
Yeah.
Wasn't very long at all to wait till legal time. And started tracking the deer. And we tracked that buck all day long. We finally caught it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And we tracked that deer that was the time your knee was messed up.
Yeah.
You were dragging your leg at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Your knee was all blown up, and
yeah.
You were picking your leg up over blowdowns.
Yeah, I get fluid on my knee. I used to get that quite a bit. Haven't had it in a while. So
in your head, you're like, that deer's 10 minutes, 15 minutes ahead of us.
Yeah.
We can catch him pretty quick. And that he never stopped.
No. And that's one of the common things you'll hear every deer tracker say. If you're behind a deer, if you started out 2 minutes behind the deer, but that deer never stopped, you'll never catch that deer.
You're losing time.
You're losing time. You'll be further behind at the end of the day than you were.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that deer does to stop.
Those bucks, they just march.
They just march
through the woods. It's just like a steady.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've had a buck walk by me, head down, and he's just
he's trucking.
He's on a straight line.
Yeah,
it's like that guy's cruising.
Yeah. So unless they either bed down or run into some deer, a doe, or whatever,
something to tie him up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess you got to know where your info's coming from, because there's a lot of quote unquote experts out there, and anyone can make a claim to fame.
Yeah.
Nowadays, and put stuff out there, and it can be hard to tease out. If you're being led in the right direction, or if you're being
well, if you don't have experience, you don't know.
No, and you got to sort that out.
Yeah,
you got to sort that out. And nowadays, there's so much information available.
There is.
You wonder. You got to really work through it all.
We all go through that progression, Paul, of and like I say, that progression is usually tied to family. Our father took us out hunting, or maybe an uncle or a grandparent that got us started, and they ignite the fire, and then, you know, it grows from there, and you're around people that have done it, and if you're fortunate, you're around experienced people that are maybe older than you and have done it a lot of years, and by hanging out with them and maybe even going hunting with them, you learn a lot, pick up a lot, and then just boots on the ground experience, just doing it over and over.
Because I mean, even if you think of someone's progression through life, their style of hunting, if they're, so we'll just say a deer tracker, for instance, their style of tracking deer or how they do it is going to change over time. When they're young and full of vigor, it's going to be completely different than someone who's in their 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
Probably has to be a little more picky and choosy about what they do and
the track they go on.
And
that's where you assess a lot more when you get older. You're thinking about, okay, I'm not going on a 15-mile jaunt, you know,
no,
up and down mountains or whatever. Okay, is this a deer that you have to assess? Is this a deer I can catch?
Yeah, where's he going?
Yeah.
Like, what's he headed into?
Yeah. So, you know, he may be with, in that situation, if he's with a doe or something, the odds of him going 15 miles aren't good. You know, if he stays with the doe, they usually don't go that far.
Yeah.
So that's an advantage.
Now, you hear two schools of thought on that. Now, I love a buck with a doe.
I do.
Because you can, even if you catch them, you can play on that chaos, on the confusion, and especially if she's ready.
Yeah.
Boys, he does not want to leave her.
Yeah.
Now, but you'll hear people say, well, now you've got two sets of eyes and ears. So you're get twice the chance of being picked out or, you know, being busted.
Yeah.
But I think the distraction of the doe with that buck is a greater advantage.
Yeah.
Twofold. He's preoccupied with her, especially if she's ready. And so number one. Number two, he, like you said, he's not going on a 15-mile jaunt.
No.
He's staying right with her.
Yeah.
And I think of all the times over the course of the past few years of just separating a buck and a doe. And he comes right back down and boom, shoot him.
Yeah, I'm the same way, Paul. It's been my experience over a lot of years. The first buck I ever shot there was a number of deer together. I didn't know it at the time. There was more than one mature buck, and they were with does, and man, they did not want to. They heard me coming, but they walked right over to me because they just assumed I was another deer or whatever, and I blew the first opportunity, but went right back to where they were, and in a half an hour, another buck came back, a different buck, came right back to where I jumped this group of deer. So obviously there was a hot doe there, and they just didn't want to. They came right back, and I shot that one. It's the first buck I ever killed.
Yeah,
back in the probably late 70s, early 80s and stuff.
And that was a nice buck. That was an 8
it was 8-pointer, just a 2.5-year-old buck. Yep. But I look at all the years that I've deer hunted, and that situation when a buck's been with a doe, I've made out pretty good a lot of times in that situation. So I'll take that situation.
Yeah, cards have always kind of fell in my favor.
Yeah.
In those situations, even look at the very first buck that I shot.
Yeah.
He heard us coming.
He can walk.
And he
right
tore
to
right
us.
down through the woods. Right,
he came right
towards
to us. He definitely heard us and came. And now we don't know that entire situation. There may have been a doe there. We shot him and stuff, and that was the end of the deal. So we don't know that entire. What was going
up there,
on.
What was with him?
Right.
He never made it up there and checked it out.
Right. Yeah.
Something clearly was.
Yeah.
There was other deer there.
Yeah. He heard us and he came right to us and stuff. And I've like I say, in my experience, I like that situation with a buck with a doe.
Yeah, I'll take it. In fact, if I just start drooling. I'm driving down the road and I see where a buck and a doe came across the road.
Yeah.
Like, oh, boys.
Yeah.
Boys, this
He's got other things on his mind besides you, when you in that situation. He's got that dough on his mind, and that, and like I say, it's worked out for me quite a few times.
And that's where experience comes in, because it's worked out good for me in the past. Yeah. I've got a positive view on that. Right. Now, let's say if someone's had a couple mishaps chasing a buck and a doe, and they get in their mind, man, it never seems to work out for me when I'm with a buck and a doe. I don't want to mess with that.
That's true. Yeah, your attitude of the situation.
And it can change your past experiences. We all have different experiences that we pull from.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that, again, we go back to that learning of having that openness between two people when they're learning from each other, is kind of sharing those past experiences, and allows you to explore, going forward.
Yeah.
How to learn to do something better. And just two different experiences can change someone's approach right there, whether it be right or wrong.
Right.
Who knows? But like you said, personally, I love it when a buck's with a doe.
I do.
Yeah, that can be a good day.
One guy, and he's correct. He calls it when the deer are zombie walking and stuff. Boy, those deer are hard to.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple years ago, we had a buck on a ridge. We were hunting for a few days.
He was psychotic.
That deer pretty much trotted everywhere.
He never
all day
walked.
long.
No.
And trying to catch him was.
It was a nice buck too.
Yeah, it was.
And it got to the point
buck.
I would see his track and it was fresh.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even.
Yeah. Well, he had a long stagger, not because he was a big deer. It was because he pretty much everywhere he'd run up and down that ridge.
Trot.
His tracks were everywhere across there, and he wasn't walking around. There was
a few days that I had tracked him, and there was one day I was close. We had circled in through a bunch of does. There was I think 4 or 5 beds. They get into a little spruce thicket. He all of a sudden, he'd gone down across the road that we drove in on. And he was going across that ridge, trotting, and then he just did a 90. And went down across the road and went right into a bunch of thick stuff. And I'm like, all right, there's something down here that all of a sudden he changed course and went into a totally different area.
Yeah.
And slowed down. Yeah. And I come to a whole bunch of beds.
Yeah, he was out checking out does, but there was nothing there, and he just took off again.
And hindsight being 20/20, it's easy to go back and say, well, I should have done this.
Yeah.
But before going into that fir thicket, if I just would have hung out there, probably would have shot the deer, because he went down in there, nosed around their beds, and then circled out and stepped right in my boot tracks.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, we're sitting here doing circles around each other.
Yeah.
Like if I just would have stayed put but you can't, that's so hard to predict.
Yeah.
There's no way you can tell when, he's going to double back and come across you'd have to be able to see the future.
Yeah.
So, but it was, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What the frig?
But when he was going in between them, boy, he was, like I say, he was right on a trot.
When he left them, we come up across the road, and then it was just trot up
straight up the hill,
the ridge. And so I start hoofing her. Like, if he's trotting, I'm gonna, because he's not slowing down. And we get up on top of the hill, and he just kept going and going and going. And I followed him, and he never.
Yeah, we never saw that deer.
Never saw him. I think we had him on camera.
Yeah, I never saw.
But even the ones on camera, he was going past the camera so fast, it wouldn't catch his head. It would get his shoulder or body or.
Yeah.
It's like, man, oh man. Don't know whatever happened to him. Didn't see any sign of him.
No, I think 2 years we saw a sign of him, and then the third year
he would hit the same tree.
Yeah, he was hitting some tamarack down in a little clearing.
Yep.
He hit 5 or 6 of them, tamarack trees in that little clearing, and then I think the third year there was nothing there.
Nothing there. Something got him.
Yeah.
Wintertime, coyote or
winter probably took him.
Hunter shot him. Yeah. But all right. Anything else to add?
No.
I guess the moral of the story is there's a lot of good information out there, but there's a lot of stuff that
Yeah.
You got to tease through to.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I would encourage you to watch it all. You know, it's all entertaining and stuff, and you can learn. You can take a little bit from all of it, probably, Paul. You know, there's stuff there that you can take away and if you go out and try to use it yourself and see what works.
Figure what works out for you.
Yeah.
Trial and error really is what it ends up boiling down to.
Yeah.
And if you're extremely new, extremely green, getting with someone that has some experience.
Always, if you can hang out with somebody that has experience in anything, it's
shorten up your learning curve a lot.
Yeah.
And listen to lots of deer stories.
Yeah, well, that's what I say. That's what I love to. I listen to a lot of podcasts, Paul, and they're all good. I enjoy them all, and some of them are really good hunters. You know, some of these people are really good hunters, and they have interesting stories, and my goodness, they do it a lot. They go to 3 or 4 or 5 states deer hunting in the Northeast: New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, they jump back and forth, which where we live is really tough because we don't have that opportunity when you're 5 hours from
getting out of the state. And I forget that because I'll see where these guys from, say, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, they're hunting all these states, and of course I see it as like, gosh, I can't hunt another state without. And I have to remind myself, they're small states. They're all right there.
If you're from Vermont, you can, jump over to the Adirondacks and New York. You can get to Maine, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
They go to Massachusetts. Yeah. We don't have that.
We're stuck up here. We're an island unto ourselves.
Exactly. We're a long way from those areas. So
there's Canada, but that's.
Yeah, you got to have a guide over there. Different deal.
Yeah,
different deal
to
go over to Canada, and you just can't drive over there and start hunting.
Nope.
So
as I was going through those old journals recently, our group of guys, basically everybody, deer tracked.
Yeah,
and then they were opportunistic. Maybe after tracking some deer for a few days, man, this is a good spot right here to sit my butt down.
Yeah,
and. Because I've chased this deer across the same road 3 times in 3 days or whatever.
Yeah.
And, just so very, very smart about
you don't want, there again, you don't want to be so, or at least I don't, so rigid that I pass up a good opportunity, well, I won't do it this way, because I had a good area to watch deer trail years ago. And it was very successful 3 years in a row, And
you had deer.
Yeah, it was a very good place to watch, and so. But that changed too. The deer disappeared.
Got to adapt.
Yeah.
So, alrighty.
Yeah,
I think we beat that horse to death.
Half to death anyway.
So get out there, absorb as much as you can, and if you're new, find someone who knows what they're doing and get out and do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Just
get out and enjoy it.
Have fun.
Have fun.
So, I guess we'll end her there.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Sounds fantastic.
I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it helps someone. So until next time, get outside.
It's good for the soul.
See ya.